Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chronic, your host here on this Destiny 2 video, and today we're going to be taking a look at my Warlock DPS builds for Raids and Nightfalls. Very quick preface, this build is actually quite similar to my Hunter and Titan versions of this build. Obviously, the same set of weapons are going to be recommended because those are my favorite for DPS and PvE. However, the obvious differences being what kind of subclass and how you use that subclass from the Warlock. So, this is going to be a PvE Warlock build that is built on the Well of Radiance Super and the Lunafaction exotic boots for the best possible reload speed in the game for raid DPS and near invincibility healing. Now technically the Weapons of Light plus 35% damage boost is still better than the Well of Radiance plus 25% damage boost, but Lunafaction Rifts and Wells are still easier reload boosts than multiple Rally Barricades. Now you combine the actual Well of Radiance with the Word of Dawn and any of the best enemy debuffs like Divinity, Tether, or Hammer Strike to get the maximum DPS in the game. So pretty much every raid is still going to have a Warlock because of that ability to reload fast quite easily, on top of the near invincibility healing. Now this is actually a build that I use not only in raids but also in my Grandmaster Nightfalls, whereas the previous ones for the Titan and the Hunter are a little bit finicky in Grandmaster Nightfalls. This one is definitely something that is still very useful in those Grandmaster Nightfalls. And along the way you'll be seeing pictures of a document that I created for this build and this video. If you wanted to get your hands on it, it's a fully public document. All you have to do is head over to my Discord server, which can be found in the description down below. And in that Discord server, in the channel hashtag spreadsheets docs, you can find a link to this doc around the date this video came out. And on top of that, I also have a giveaway going on right now. And also on top of that, I also have a giveaway going on right now. So if you wanted to win yourself an Astro 840 headset, Blue microphone product, or a Control Freaks gift code, go ahead and check in the link in the description down below. And again, a huge thank you to those sponsors for providing for this giveaway. Without them, this wouldn't be possible. And of course, on top of that, there are some discounts to those sponsors. Check in the description down below. Right, so let's go ahead and talk about the specs of this build. For the class and subclass, obviously it's going to be Warlock Solar Attunement of Grace, which is going to be the middle tree with the Well of Radiance. I personally like using solar grenades, just has pretty great area of effect, and DPS. Empowering Rift is going to be quite important. We'll talk about why that's important later. And finally, Burst Glide is just what I always use. Very fast Warlock is very good. As far as the guns go, this is pretty much exactly the same as the Titan and Hunter builds. Imperial Decree, Recluse, and Whisper are still my favorite combo. However, some slight modification here. If you're going for things like Grandmaster Nightfalls, you have to focus on specific types of exotics, whether you're using things like Izanagis or Arianas. Some things have to be mixed up depending on the activity that you're doing. And on top of that, the kind of weapons that you like using. For example, in the Grandmasters, I would honestly prefer things like the longer range hand cannons, like the 140s, the Owl Stringers. I think these are much better options than going for the Recluse. Very close range, you're probably going to get hit a lot. And as a last little note, Whisper the Worm is still technically the DPS king with the Catalyst. It is technically better than the Xenophage as far as damage goes. However, certain bosses do take more damage from explosion damage, like the Garden of Salvation boss. As far as the armor goes, pretty similar to the Titan and Hunter one. Generally, you want to get things like Intellect, Sniper, Shotgun, and Heavy / Special ammo stuff. The most important ones are going to be the fact that you need Void to do Sniper and hand cannon stuff, so if you're going for those, make sure that armor piece is Void. Going for Sniper reserves on the chest is also quite important. Gives you more total reserves with your Whisper the Worm, allowing you to do more total ammo damage. Making sure you have Lunafaction Boots exotic is very important for this build because it is predicated upon using Lunafaction. And finally, depending on your playstyle, what kind of super generation like pump action, remote connection, dynamo, hands-on, it's up to you. Personally, I use a lot of shotguns, so pump action works the best for me. Because again, this build is built on using your super for very specific stuff, so super generation is quite important. Right, so moving on to the gameplay, this is a Boss DPS build with a very decent healing neutral game. I primarily use this build in Raids and Nightfalls, and the focus of this build is to get and use your super for boss damage. In the boss damage phase, it is your job to make a Well of Radiance for all of your teammates to have the empowered weapon damage buff and the fastest possible reload from Lunafaction Boots on top of, again, new invincibility healing. And if you end up not having your Well for a certain damage phase, you can actually put down your Empowering Rifts to get faster reloading and the same empowered damage boost, the same 25%, which is part of the reason why I use Empowering Rift to have an alternative to your Well. It is important to keep in mind the Well of Radiance also has a very fast and very strong healing and is a very safe place to survive most attacks from most enemies outside of melee slam attacks and some high burst damage options. So generally don't be afraid to use your Well of Radiance to prevent yourself from dying. Sometimes surviving is more important than having a super in your pocket. And again, because you have an empowering rift, you can use that as an alternative to having your super. Not the best option because you can't heal, but in a lot of situations in raids, you don't really need to heal. Your neutral game is an often overlooked part of this subclass, but is actually really strong. Your grenade can be charged for a full heal and overshield for your whole team. Your melee gives you empowering just from any of your melee hits, which is a great combo with Trench Barrel. And finally, healing or empowering any of your allies increases the recharge rate of all of your abilities. You can very easily chain rifts and grenade heals if you consistently support your team. Literally, if you have two teammates standing in your rift, literally that will recharge your entire rift before the rift is done. So you can have infinite rifts the entire time, which means you also get your melees back faster and your grenades back faster. So as long as you're supporting your team, you're getting a lot of rifts back, a lot of grenades. It's a lot of fun. An often overlooked part of Lunafaction Boots is that it doubles the range of your equipped weapons in empowering rifts and wells, which is another reason why you're using empowering rifts, which is not always what you want to use, by the way. Grandmasters, you still probably want to use the healing rifts, but getting double the range in your empowering rift is also really strong. It makes your hand cannons have pulse rifle range, which is kind of crazy. And if your teammates are standing in those rifts, you also can chain those rifts to the next location and continually have double the range. And lastly, let's talk about alternatives. Now, there are a few alternatives to this build. For the most part, the weapons are a critical part of the build, but I do have a few alternatives that I mentioned before. Now, there's actually a flow chart to what kind of weapons you should be using for a certain situation, and it often depends on whether you have a rally flag. At the beginning of encounters in raids and dungeons, you can spawn with full ammo by activating a rally flag, which gives a lot more power to heavy weapons. But if you're playing an activity that doesn't have a lot of heavy ammo drops, for example, Nightfalls, you're probably going to want to favor more towards exotic specials instead of exotic heavies. So in raids and dungeons, you're probably going to want to go with exotic heavies like Wisp of the Worm or Xenophage. In things like Nightfalls or Strikes or regular stuff, you might want to favor more towards exotic specials like Izanagi's or Arianas. There's a lot of good options for both, but they both depend on the availability of the heavy ammo. On top of that, there's also an alternative to the Lunafaction Boots. Depending on the activity you're doing, Phoenix Protocol could be very good if you need more wells than you need faster reloading. For example, in Reckoning, you need a lot of wells for the bridge section, pretty much every location, so having Phoenix Protocol with Bad Juju is going to be a great option so you can have a well for every location. However, I will say that Phoenix Protocol has actually dropped out of my top 10 for Warlock Exotic. And that is going to be pretty much the end of it. If you did end up liking this build or you like the videos that I do, make sure you leave a like. It lets the algorithm know. I don't know why people are mentioning algorithm, but I thought I'd do it too. It sounds pretty smart. It lets the algorithm know that you like my video and other people should see it too. And on top of that, subscribe for more weekly build videos. And if you had any questions, of course, let me know in the comments down below or hit me up on Discord. I'm very active on my Discord server. Lots of people there that can also help answer your questions as well. So hit me up on Discord. You're going to get a lot faster response. Well, yeah, that is the end of it. Of course, my name's been Chronic, and I'll see you guys on the next one.